Hey everyone, this is Mike. Today I'm going to be revisiting Monster Train. Now, a couple months ago I took a look at this game, did a few Let's Plays of it as well. When it first came out last year, it's been quite some time since then. The game has had quite a few updates, and it's been a little while since I've played the game myself. I started playing it again about a week ago when a friend of mine bought it, and I saw that a lot of updates had happened. There is a new update scheduled to come out relatively soon as well. It's currently in the public beta as well, so you can go and try that out if you really want to do so. But so far, this game has definitely not disappointed me. All of the updates so far have been completely free, so it's just been really easy for me to just sit back, relax, and enjoy as the new updates come out without me having to worry about having to spend a lot of money to buy all of the DLCs, so definitely really good in that regard. And it's just been a lot of fun for me to just come back to the game and see that a fair amount of things have changed. They've added a lot of new content so far already, and I'm really curious to see what the new update is going to bring to the game as well, because I haven't taken a look at the new update yet so that I can get surprised when they do add in the new content. Now, because of that, because it's been a very long time since I've actually made a video on this game because some things have changed, I decided to revisit it here on YouTube so that I can maybe get some of you guys interested in the game as well, seeing how there's also a lot of new people on the YouTube channel as well that might have never heard of this game before. So if you don't know what this game is, basically very simple. It's a deck building roguelike game. Hell is frozen over, you are in possession of the final spark, I guess you could call it, and you need to ride your train all the way down to hell, defeating all of the angels that are blocking your path, and then reignite the spark of hell to basically like restore order, so to speak. You're playing as the devils or the demons, and the angels are the bad guys over here in this game, so I do quite like the thematic. In terms of setup, there's actually quite a lot of customization that you can do before you go into a run. There are 5 different clans. With one of the updates that came out, each clan now also has a second champion, and you always get to choose a combination of 2 different clans. So your primary clan will decide what champion you're going to be playing around. Usually your champion will also kind of indicate what type of deck you want to go for, because they give specific passives as well towards a specific playstyle maybe that you want to go towards, so certain clans will be better for certain playstyles. You can also choose a secondary clan to kind of support your primary clan or your specific champion with some extra spell cards or other cards that you want access to, so that you can kind of get some synergies going. You can also put modifiers on your runs if you want to do so. There's also a covenant level that will increase the difficulty as well. Also, again, add some different modifiers to your runs, but that is all completely optional to you if you want to have some extra customization, basically. But if you want to keep it very standard, you choose a champion, you choose a secondary clan as well, and then you just hit the part and you get going. Now, when it comes down to the gameplay itself, it's definitely very different from your normal deck building roguelike that I have played so far. Your train itself has 4 different levels. You have the bottom, the middle, the top, and then all the way at the top, that is where your ember is. Enemies generally enter the train from the bottom, and then after each round they move up if they're still alive. If they're dead, they can't move up, of course. And then once they reach that 4th floor where your ember is, which is basically your HP total, they'll start attacking that. And then of course when your ember dies, that is where your run will end, or of course if you beat the final boss, and that will be the end of the run as well. So basically you need to try to stop the enemies as they move up the floors by putting your own units in there as well. There are a couple of different things that you can get. You have your normal units, you have of course your champion unit, which you will draw at the start of each encounter as well, and then you have a bunch of spell cards that you can use to basically buff up your units. One very important thing to note is that when a unit dies, they are dead. They're not coming back for this encounter. When you beat the boss and you go into the next encounter, your units will be back available to you, but for each specific encounter, once you've put a unit on the field, you can't actually put them on a different floor anymore, or you can't like recall them or something like that. Unless of course you have specific spells that interact with units like that, but for the most part, if you put a unit down and it dies, it is gone. There are specific modifiers that you can put on units, specific spell cards that can make you get units back from the dead, but for the most part, that's not really going to be a thing. When it comes down to spell cards though, those you will be able to use throughout the entire encounter. You have your draw pile, you have your discard pile. At the beginning of the round, you take cards from your draw pile. At the end of the round, you discard the remaining cards in your hand to your discard pile, and then once your draw pile is empty, all of your cards that were discarded go back to the draw pile, and then you just take from there again. So depending on what type of deck that you want to build towards, you can get some really cool things going where you're just spamming out spell cards and cycling through your discard pile relatively quickly as well. Of course, it all depends on what you are going for with your deck thematic itself. And then from there on out, the gameplay itself plays it out pretty easily. You place your units, enemy units enter your train at the bottom, they clash, and then at the end of the round, enemy units move up if they're still alive. And then eventually the boss will spawn. Once the boss is there, they will fight to the death with the units of yours that are on that floor as well. If the boss ends up winning, they move up a floor, and then again they fight to the death until only one is remaining, until they reach your pyre room or your ember room and then start hitting that, or until the boss is dead. Certain bosses you can also attack without them being inside of your train just yet, but I'm not gonna go into that all too much. But for the most part, it's relatively straightforward. When it comes down to specific mechanics like buffs, debuffs, other special abilities that are going off, everything is super clear as well. Whenever you hover over an enemy that has a specific buff or debuff on them, it will always immediately explain exactly what is going to happen. There is also a little like combat preview to see how much damage are you going to be taking, how much damage are you going to be dealing to the enemies as well. So there is definitely a lot of clarity when it comes down to this game, which is really nice because there are a lot of different things that you need to know if you really want to play the game well, so to speak. But everything is immediately explained if you want to take the time to read through all of the debuffs, because you just have to hover over them and you can see everything right in front of you. When it comes down to adding cards to your deck, when it comes down to upgrading the cards that you have, it's also relatively simple. Whenever you go into an encounter, there is a trial that you can choose to undertake, yes or no. This is basically a little bit of a risk reward. If you do choose to take the trial, then the enemies will become tougher, like for example getting more HP, getting some armor, getting some other modifiers attached to them or something like that. But if you are able to clear the encounter with this trial active, you will also get a bonus for it. This can be gold, an artifact, an extra unit that you can draw. Basically depends on what the trial is, and you can see what the risk is going to be. You can also see what the reward is going to be, so you can basically say for yourself, okay, this risk is worth the reward, yes or no. And then that is basically going to be your choice right there. Outside of the encounters themselves, there is always going to be an upgrade phase in between each encounter. You have a left track, you have a right track, and you can also immediately see what you can upgrade over there. You can gain gold, for example, heal your ember if you took some damage on it, remove cards from your deck if you have things in there that you don't want, upgrade spell cards, upgrade your units, for example, get artifacts, because you can also buy artifacts on certain parts as well. For example, upgrade your champion, get some random event or something like that as well, duplicate a card. There are basically a lot of things that you can do to upgrade the cards in your deck or also gain new cards. And the most important thing of all is that most of it comes down to your personal choice. You have the choice in between, do I want to go left, do I want to go right? Which of the two upgrades do I prefer the most? And of course, as you go down further, there will be more upgrades on these two tracks as well. So it really comes down to what you want at that moment to upgrade your deck with. And then of course you also have those trials if you want to get some extra upgrades, if the risk is worth the reward. And that is pretty much my rundown of Monster Train. The game is definitely a lot of fun, it has a lot of replay value as well, with all of the different modifiers, with the 5 different clans that you can then again mix together with a secondary clan that you need to choose as well, each clan also having a second champion now as well. Again, that's a lot of replay value. Makes you look at a specific clan in a different way, because depending on what champion you choose, you might be playing a completely different style with the same clan just because you chose a different champion. And then again, most of the champions also have 2 different upgrade routes that you can go with as well, where one might be very spell focused, whereas the other might be very unit focused, where you want to buff up your units as much as possible, whereas the other one might be all about using as many spells as possible. So it's all really how you want to play, and I think that it just makes for a very good game with a lot of replay value. Anyways, if you think this game is interesting, I'll leave a link to the Steam page in the description of the video as well. Definitely gets my full recommendation. And on that note, I want to thank you for watching, I want to thank my patrons for supporting me, and I'll see you in the next one.